Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to Community Planners Committee. My name is Victoria Labruzzo. Thank you all for being here, and we have quite a few online as well. So we do have quorum with 22 planning group members here. And so I am going to, what's the first thing I'm doing? I'm going to ask about if there's any modifications to the agenda.
Oh, man, I just had one just tiny correction. For item number 4, it says understanding development impact fees, diff, planning department and DSD processes. The DSD should be engineering capital.
Engineering, okay. I cut and paste for me.
I was like, oh,
I don't know. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
All right. If that's the only one, if I could have a motion to approve the agenda with amendments. Eric, motion,
I'll second.
and Chris seconds. Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda. I'm just gonna. Right, any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, and what's your name?
Chris.
Chris?
Yeah.
And you're from Tierra Santa?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. All right, thank you. So moving on, we're gonna go ahead and do the roll call. I have my sheet. And as before, if you will please give us your name when I call your community name. And I think because we will probably in the next couple of meetings have people swapping out because we've had elections. We have officer positions changing, maybe CPC alternates coming in. So I want to encourage you to let me know and Marlon know of those changes so we can update email addresses and rosters and all of that. So it'd be real helpful if you could communicate those changes to us right now. And then we have our process here with the things we have to do with training and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Barrio Logan. Carmel Mountain Ranch. Carmel Valley.
Here, Jeopardy.
Yeah. Encanto.
President Sage, Gonzalez Holding.
City Heights. Claremont. College area.
Robert, Montana.
Thank you, Robert. Del Mar Mesa. Downtown.
Albany.
Eastern area. Online.
We have Linda Edwards is on Zoom.
Is she can you unmute or is she?
I'm not the designee for the CPC. That would be Laura Rebo, but I don't know if she's here tonight or not.
I'm here, Laura Rebo.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. Greater Golden Hill.
Here, David Swans.
Thank you, David. Kearney Mesa. Kensington Talmadge.
David Modi.
La Jolla.
Kathleen Neal, alternate La Jolla.
Linda Vista.
Felicity Sinowski.
Midway. Mira Mesa.
Bo Gibbons from Mira Mesa.
Thank you, Bo. Mission Beach. Mission Valley. Navajo.
Kevin Sullivan, alternate.
Normal Heights.
Paul Coogan.
North Park.
Lynn Elliott.
Ocean Beach.
Andrea Schlageter, present for Ocean Beach.
Thank you, Andrea. Old Town. Otay Mesa. Otay Mesa and Esther. Peninsula.
Eric Law.
Rancho Bernardo.
Touchdown.
Rancho Penasquitos.
Yes, Evelyn Heidelberg, an alternate for John Becker.
Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, San Pasquale Hodges. San Ysidro, Scripps Ranch, Victoria Labruzzo, Sarah Mesa.
Deborah Burns.
Could you say your name again?
Deb Burns.
Deb Burns. Thank you, Deb. Skyline Paradise Hills. Torrey Hills. Torrey Pines. University
Got Chris Nielsen.
and Uptown. Yep, okay, good. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here. Okay, we are gonna move on to non-agenda public comment. Oh, say, hold on, non-agenda public comment. Let's go ahead with, do we have any non-agenda public comment about anything that's not on agenda? What? So quiet. Wow, moving right along. Guess you guys want to get out of here. That's something new. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on then, and our next thing is to approve, approval of the meeting minutes, February 24th, 2026. Can I have a motion?
I have a correction,
Yes,
actually, to the real minor.
okay,
First one is the attendance lists, Lisa Friedemann, she was not here, the alternate Kathleen Neal was. The other change is item 4 in the minutes, shows a unanimous, I think that's just a typo because there was one no vote.
all right. Can I have a motion to approve of the amendments? Yes,
Motion to approve it.
okay, a second. Eric. Thank you. All right, we're gonna go real quick and do that. So approval of the minutes. This will go a little faster. Carmel Valley,
Yes.
Encanto,
Yeah.
College area,
Yes.
downtown,
Yes.
Eastern area. Oh, she's on here.
Yeah.
You there, Laura?
Yes, I approve the minutes.
Thank you. Greater Golden Hill,
Abstain, not present.
okay. Kensington Talmadge,
Yes.
La Jolla,
Yes.
Linda Vista,
Yes.
Mira Mesa,
Yes.
Navajo,
Abstain, absent.
Normal Heights,
Yes.
North Park,
Approved.
Ocean Beach.
Yes.
Okay, Peninsula,
Yes.
Rancho Bernardo,
Yes.
Penasquitos,
Yes.
okay, Scripps Ranch, yes. Sarah Mesa,
Yes.
Tierra Santa,
Abstain.
one there, okay, University,
Yes.
all right. I think that passes.
Yes.
Then up next,
Southeastern is here. Sorry to interrupt. Southeastern is here, and I just wanted to put a yes.
oh, great, okay, Southeast, is this Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay, great, I got you counted, thank you,
Thank you so
Jasmine.
much. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Moving right along, okay, we have your votes. So,
Kelly, is
Ah.
it just you today, or are we
I
waiting?
have got something spirit on the way. She's not quite here yet. I
Okay.
apologize.
It's all right.
I don't know if you're able to take our item out of order and trailer for just a minute until she gets here. And I'm checking on her to make sure she's okay.
okay, yeah, that's not, fun. Everybody's okay with that?
Thank
We
you so
can
much.
flip and go to the next presenter?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead then and go to item number 5, which is complete communities density tracking project. by Preserve Greater Golden Hill, and we have Jen James coming to speak, and, oh, yeah. Go ahead and introduce it. I know you told me your name and I told you I was gonna probably forget, so.
Is it okay for me to address everybody at the front?
I would love to have you up at the
Thank
front. That will help with the owl tracking and sound and yeah, you
Yes.
just, yeah, perfect.
My name is Richard Santini. Hello and good afternoon to all of you. I come representing Greater Golden Hill. I come representing Preserve Greater Golden Hill. I have been on the planning group board in Greater Golden Hill for 17 years and just got reelected again for a third 8-year term going to be working on. So would definitely like to do at least 20 years there.
Recording in progress.
All right.
Let's do it.
So from the Golden Hill Planning Group, we have been seeing a lot of development happening in our community. So if you ever drive down the 5 South and you see all the cranes showing up in Golden Hill, this is what we're talking about. This is all the almost unsustainable growth that we're seeing here. So what we're talking to you about is how we're tracking that information. But first, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So from the planning group spawned Preserve Greater Golden Hill. And what we are is we're the advocacy group coming from the planning group. We're a 501c3, so we're able to accept funds and tax deductible. And what we're doing is go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Trying to move this right along. So we are a multifaceted system. So when it comes to promoting smart growth, that's mostly what we're going to be talking about here, and including also with providing affordable housing. We do have a wonderful success story in that some of the open space that we had that was next to one of our dog parks, we were able to convince the owner to, instead of sending it to a developer for more high density development, potentially to actually give it to us. Stewards, and then we're going to be working with San Diego Canyonlands, and that's going to eventually be permanent open space and be connected as part as a continuous green belt into the Swisher Canyon. So that's one of the things we're working on. It helps a lot of people out. Another one is with the wildfires. We know all the devastation that's happened lately, so we actually formed a part of our group that's helping with the educational portion of that. If you have seen this shirt, we call it Color and Awesome. So several more of our team members back there are wearing some of this shirt. And what this is when you see the groups of folks showing up on the news, having protests, going to Balboa Park, fighting against whatever, or our law case, our court case against the development and the SDA, we're all wearing that shirt. So that's what we are. We're the folks who went ahead and sued the city to try and get the city to conform to its actual own rules when it comes to the SDA. The fact that they have a planned transit stop 10 years from now down the road a mile gives them justification to keep having developers come in, buy up craftsman homes, knock them down, scrape them down, and then start building up towers with hundreds of units. So this is what we're fighting right now. In addition to that fight, we're also looking at how is the total cap of housing in our neighborhood that's been deemed for our neighborhood, because we all know, coming from Sacramento, we have a housing crisis, correct? I mean, Mary's gonna shake her head here, whatever. But there is a housing crisis when really it's truly an affordability crisis. And with that housing crisis, every neighborhood was meant to observe a certain amount of density to that, including our own neighborhood. So whenever you see Golden Hill put up in front of you, you can just replace it with your own neighborhood, because every neighborhood is being tasked with trying to accept a certain amount of density. We've been tracking that density. Next slide, please. And at this point here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jen James. She's on our board as well. And we're going to start talking about what this density looks like for our neighborhood and how you also can track this and what it means for all of you as well. So with that, if you want.
Is that where the recording is?
Mhm.
I'm just gonna kind of sit really close so that people
So
can hear
you
me.
hear you well.
Okay, so good evening, how are you all? As Richard said, my name is Jennifer James. I live in Greater Golden Hill, and I
I got involved in a lot of this work because of the canyon work that we're not talking about here today, but we are talking about density, and that's another part of our work. Now, I wanted to, I'm going to be going through a presentation of some of the results that we have, that we've been collecting over time. We've been drinking from a fire hose, understanding all of this stuff, like a lot of folks have. And so I'm glad that the city is here, and I believe some of the planning team has shown up, because maybe there's some things that they can actually correct if we have got something wrong, or you might be able to add some context or some information that we have missed. And if I talk too fast, slow me down. If I talk too soft, give me a finger, talk louder. And if I say a bunch of acronyms or things that you don't know, stop. And if you have questions, you can always stop me throughout this too. This is not like a stage presentation. Stop me at any time. All right, next slide. So I'll give you a little history about how we got here. So around 2025, mid 2025, we started seeing the development was accelerated, and we wondered what was happening and who was monitoring this. By the summer of 2025, we couldn't find a city report that had local progress towards the state's 2021-29 housing cycle. So we knew that the state had a regional housing needs allocation. That's something Richard mentioned. And it sets its housing capacity goal for new units. And then the city portions out, or the county portions out, like how much each planning area is going to get, so that we can all reach our goal and be able to support our community's housing needs. So at the start of this housing cycle, which is 2021, our capacity for our community was 1,121. That's how many units we needed to provide to make sure that we were doing our part to address the housing issues. And actually, we're a community of concern, and a community of concern is identification by the neighborhood that we're identified by the San Diego Climate Equity Index as having very low, or moderate access to opportunity. So when you're a community of concern, your goal, they give you 20% off your goal. So our actual goal from the county was like 1,401. If you 20% of that ends up being that 1,121. So if you're a community of concern, that's something to be aware of. So now we kind of had, okay, so 2021, we knew what the goal was, what the capacity of our neighborhood was. And so then we were like, okay, so now let's start to see what we can find. So we dug into the DSD data. Has anybody been to the dashboard, the DSD dashboard? Wow. Yeah, just oodles of data. So thank goodness, like Mike Chicky is over there, and he is like a data warrior, and he has gone through everything that has to do with Golden Hill. So I'm so thankful for him. In October 2025, so we're there, we're going through the data, we're looking at the housing that's coming in and stuff. And then the city issued their 2025 annual report on homes. And so by the city's count, we had 576 permits in the period of 2021 to 24. That was the city count. We were like, what? Because it just seemed a little bit. Excellent. Oh, thank you. It seemed a little bit low compared to what we were seeing on the ground. And as we looked into it, one of the key reasons for this discrepancy that we were seeing, that this lower number, was that there's a lag in data collection to reporting. So the city, every year, they wait till the end of the calendar year, then they take all the data down, they clean it, they verify it, they make sure that it's, all good, and then they release the data back and say, this is what happened. But that means that our data is always late in what's happening. And so like the 2025 report was issued in October 2025, it was only on the data that ran through 2024. Okay, so now from the start, we're way behind now, like roughly 20 months, 8 months, however you wanted to count it, we are now very off. So another issue that we had with this, next slide, please. Thank you. Another issue was that our overview, so when we were looking through things and we were looking for this permitting that was issued, we found an additional 223 units that were in the dashboard that weren't in the same period of time of 2021 to 24, that weren't anywhere in the city report. So, and this included a 114 unit complete community project, significant project, not a little one, a significant one that wasn't on there. And, given this building is currently under construction in 2025, we are making the assumption that it was permitted during the current housing cycle. We have compiled a list of all of these 223 units, and they're sitting with planning right now. And we have asked them to give us a property by property explanation for why they were excluded. Because it may be, we're still kind of newbies at this, so we may have made mistakes, but we would like to know. So, and they said that they were going to respond, but they're caught in the housing count for 2025. All right, next slide. So, given that the city's count is going to lag quite a bit behind real-time permitting, we also decided to count what was happening in 2025. So we went through all of the permits issued in 2025 to understand. We counted 480 units. Okay, so now we're at 480. And again, this number has not been verified by the city, and they're going to be issuing their own numbers at some point in the future. But considering the rapid pace and the scale of this development that's happening in our community, we really wanted to be sure that we were on top of it and we were seeing what was happening. And so that's why it was really critical that we estimate this amount. So now you start seeing, okay, so now things are getting a little bit more. So now if you add all of the data that we have to date, the city count, our count for 21 through 24, and the 25 count, which is 480, now we're starting to get into higher numbers. We're starting to get into 1,279 units. We have surpassed our goal, our capacity goal, 3 years ahead of time. So now we're starting to see something that feels a little bit off balance. So, and if you think about just 480, the number of units permitted in 2025 alone is equivalent to 83% of the total units built over the entire period of 21 through 24. So how rapid development is happening right now is starting to be very, very, very much a concern. Next slide, please. So then we thought, okay, let's break this down. What's happening in 2025? Because 2025 was a bumper year for development, so what's going on? So we took a closer look. 3 complete community projects, 3 of them, make up 75% of the permitted units in 2025. So just 3 buildings could create 75% of the permitted units. We're getting buildings that are 186 units, 107 units, 70 units, all during the period of 1 year. Two of these complete community properties are possible because they are built on unfunded rapid transit lines that are not planned to be built until 2035. So the reason that they are permissible under the code, under the municipal code, is because there's supposedly going to be some mass transit. Because it's in the plan, it's unfunded, and Sandag just released reports this week about how they're cutting ridership and lines. So the chance of anything happening as far as mass transit is going to be questionable. And that is the center. So Richard mentioned our lawsuit. That's the center of our lawsuit, is like, we're going to be a community that is going to be harmed by this. We are going to be a community that is going to be waiting for rapid transit at least 10 years and maybe never, because they can't fund it. And so we are going to have this level of density that is all planned because of mass transit, and we don't have mass transit. Pardon me?
Without parking.
Without parks.
Without parking.
So,
yes.
so in the beginning, you had mentioned, sir, that the lawsuit was about asking the city to conform to its own sustainable development area rules. So what is it doing? And so let's match that up. Let's reconcile what you just said, that there's unfunded rapid transit lines.
That's our lawsuit, is against the SDA portion of complete communities.
So what is the rule? So there is a rule, or there is not a rule that permits building around unfunded lines?
The lawsuit centers around the harm of our community and the potential new tenants, because complete communities is also part of the climate action plan to get San Diegans out of their cars, into homes, close to transit, and then get them to the business centers. So that way there's less vehicles travel, less miles traveled. When they're doing all this construction, all this building, and we have one bus line, we don't have the multiple bus lines that is required by complete communities. And now they're saying that, well, just because it's on a plan, 10 years from now, it's unfunded, plan. I mean, it just popped up on a map. That's good enough to go ahead and start doing all this development in our neighborhood. And we're showing that this is gonna cause great harm to us.
So you're challenging the rule.
We are challenging
Okay.
that ability
Okay.
for them to use a planned unfunded transit 10 years from now
Okay.
as justification.
I misunderstood. I thought you had said that you were asking the city to conform to that, but you're challenging it. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Well,
Are there other questions? Yes.
Question from left field with all these units, excuse me, with all these units. Do the city's conditions of approval for those various projects make any requirements for upgrades of, the underground infrastructure, storm drain, sewer, water, possibly reclaimed water?
That is a great segue.
And because, and or are they being asked to pay development impact fees towards the future improvement? Because typically, developer impact fees collected 1 year don't get used for lots of years after that. I mean, just look at Mira Mesa, look at Verno Mesa,
Yeah.
lost it 3 years ago on basis. Developer impact fees being collected and not used.
Yep.
So unless you can demonstrate the infrastructure is up to game, put that in there.
There's not a gain in any infrastructure. So complete communities allows these dense properties to be built without any specifics of infrastructure enhancements.
That's prime right there.
And so it's the impact on community safety, well-being, livability. And that's why we started our Fire Safe Council.
to your point, we actually were able to convince District 3 City Council member Stephen Whitburn to ask for the planning department to conduct a traffic study, because we actually got Deputy Fire Marshal Tosca to advocate for us and say, hey, listen, you're surrounded by canyons, you're surrounded by freeways, you have 130-year-old roads. Who knows what the plumbing is for all your fire hydrants and all that. You only have one firehouse, and we're gonna start having, as you can see, how many more units showing up. So city council advocated for us, you guys should get you guys should get a traffic study done before any more building happens. Planning said, no, we don't have to do that, because Complete Communities has an overlay that says we don't need to do that. Whitburn's office asked a second time, let's do a traffic study. We need to better understand this based on this new information that we have. Again, city said, no, we don't have to do that. And they keep handing out permits.
Yeah.
Correct, studies are nice, if you're gonna have the water sewer lines failing, it's a very old lines, older than all 6-inch water lines.
Yeah, so I mean, the Complete Communities waivers and offers incentives for developers to get out of many things in service of increasing housing and making, because there are a lot of holdups that have been in the past system. But it is, but opting out of critical studies that protect our community are something else that we're concerned about. As well as developers can opt out of, they can either choose to do a 25,000 foot promenade, or they can give money to a neighborhood enhancement fund. And so that sounded great for us, and we were like, well, great, a neighborhood enhancement fund, but we'll go get Greater Golden Hills pushing and we'll do, whatever we need to do. Turns out it goes into a general fund, and then none of us as a community get a chance to say where it goes. So it's, so I'm not sure, and maybe there was some talk that maybe it would go into some kind of affordable housing programs, but we'll see. Okay. Questions? Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I saw part of the, when your attorney was speaking and the city attorney was there.
Yeah.
She said, I think it was on Instagram, and she said, how come you all didn't show up at the plant why weren't you there when they were planning Complete Communities? And I just thought, wow, that's the city's answer to this whole procedure, because they're letting go of people, right? I mean, they're not allowed, they're just taking all of those studies away and saying, who cares? And anyway, go ahead. I just thought that was.
I mean, you all sit on planning groups, you all represent your neighborhoods, you all had the ability before to look at these developers, look at these plans and say, how is this gonna fit in our neighborhood? How is this gonna benefit our neighborhood? How is this gonna provide equal housing to everybody? And slowly but surely, that power has been taken away from all of us. So this is what we're left with.
Okay,
Oh, and there was a pandemic,
and yeah,
which limited public discourse.
right.
I was wondering, does the percentage, I mean, obviously, the percentage of housing does not match the percentage targets for amenities, parks, fire stations, libraries,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yep.
Is there a known percentage gap? Like you said, there was this overbuild of X percent.
Yeah.
Is there underbuild in these specific areas like parks or libraries?
I think there could be. The answer is like, if we did a study, if we had a study, we would know what the scale of that underdevelopment is, but we don't have any studies to do that. So no, we don't know the scale. And I think that's part of the reason.
I don't think you need a study. I think it's well known. You just need to ask the right people.
Oh,
The
really?
old community has 0 parks, 0 libraries, or underbuild, you can't.
So that's actually easy to answer.
There you go.
Think ahead.
College area is 95% efficient.
So to the point about how many park points we have, that's something you actually can calculate. It's not require city staff.
Parking lots?
No, park points,
Park points?
park points. Parks are measured in park points.
Oh, we don't have any parks.
We don't have any.
We have 0. Yeah.
Well, you do have the boundary with Balboa Park, which counts as.
Balboa Park is considered our equivalency for our park. We
Right.
don't have pocket
I
parks
got
in
that.
that park.
You can calculate that. You should
Okay.
calculate that. You should also look to your community plan, find out what parks they had planned for you.
Yeah.
And you can show the gap between the population remaining
yeah.
for its development and the fact that your own plan cannot keep up with it. Now,
Okay.
the existing gaps, the city writes off, but you should be able to keep pace with
Okay.
your current growth levels.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And the other question I have is, you mentioned the 80%, the 20% discount you got for being a community.
That was really bad. I'm gonna be quoted that now. That was a bad joke.
Okay, but there's also an 80% rule that if at some point, complete communities, I believe, turns off once you get 80% of build out.
Okay,
And do you know what your build out is and how close you are to that?
so so here's and I'm so happy that the planning team is here, because maybe this could be something we could talk a little bit about. The first part of the code says that once you hit 80, community concern, once you hit 80% of your goal, we thought that it was like, then you're done. But if you look at complete communities, there's actually a statement under there, and I'm gonna get this wrong, but it says, once you hit your goal, or 2029 comes and then the end of the housing cycle happens, whichever is later.
Later.
So it doesn't, the 80% didn't matter, but it's written in that those things are no longer a concern for a community of concern.
Reverse warranty.
Good. And again, this could be your neighborhoods as well. These are our numbers. Just put your name in front of greater. That could be your neighborhood as well.
And can I ask just for the planning team, and if you just say not now, that's fine. I don't need to put you on the spot, but that language that was included in the municipal code is, I've never seen something that says, usually here, whatever's first. This one is whichever is last, which then negates any holds or boundaries for a community of concern. Why was that put in there? Do you know what was the thinking behind that?
Not clear.
You're not. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, all right, past predicts future. All right, so let's just continue. We have a trajectory now. We had 3 years, then we have 1 year, so let's keep on going. Let's look to the future of what this would be. So complete communities sunsets in 2029. That's the same time as this housing cycle sets. If permitting continues even at half of the pace of 2025, at the end of 2029, we will be at 239 units. That's about double what our goal, what our capacity is. If it is the same pace, we will have tripled our capacity.
And no way of shutting it off.
So Now, I'm gonna switch a little bit. We're gonna look a little bit more into what's happening with these, who's benefiting from these units. But before we go on, just as far as the density and how rapid it happens, the rapidity, are there any questions from anyone? Before we go on?
Jen, I'm gonna have you just go forward because time wise.
Okay.
I still have six.
I will try to be brief. Anybody on the phone? Is there anything pressing?
And I'll let you know if they raise their
They raise
hands.
their- Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna try to motor through this. So who benefits and who's left behind? So another way of looking at these 2025 numbers is, let's look at 3 properties specifically, those big 3 ones that are going in, right? Who's gonna benefit from these developments? Well, Greater Golden Hill, just like many other communities in Canto and others, we were shaped by a legacy of redlining and disinvestment. And today it remains a mixed income neighborhood, which we find very rich and very meaningful, and we want to keep it that way. However, while there are higher income residents of our neighborhood, and the overall median household incomes are below the citywide average. And a disproportionate share of households are cost burdened, meaning that they're paying more for housing than they can make. So despite these obvious needs, all 3 properties are overwhelmingly geared towards the above area median income households. The 3 properties that I mentioned, those 3 that make up the most of it, are all about 90% units for above median income. Only 10%, and oftentimes less, are for even moderate income. So you start seeing who this is for and how this is going to change our community and who it's pushing out.
So are you saying that the result in housing is that it doesn't match the demographic that the rule was created for?
Yeah. And if you go to the data and you look, so Mike has the spreadsheet that it's all the city's data on like how many are above AMI, area median income, above, moderate, less, all of those. He has all of those categories. Citywide, it's 80% above median income, citywide. We're at 90% above median income with these 3. So it is not benefiting, and the whole RHA actually has these targets for other income areas that we have for other income groups, and those are not being met. And so we have neighbors that are getting pushed out, and people are saying, oh, but we're replacing the units. They're, if you kick out 5 people to do this development, we'll have 5 units, but those people are gone. And many of those people are the people that are the long-term residents and they're low income, and they're often people of color. Pardon me? Yes, please.
So the categories that the calculator gives us, very low, median, moderate, above moderate. So the 90% that Jen was talking about is actually close to 5%, because moderate income is $156,000 for a family of 4, which is 20% over the AMI. So it's like, we're in an area of low income, community concern. So it makes no sense to put these type of developments in our area. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. Bart, I'm just gonna go over this quickly. This just makes that point again. It's like in Greater Golden Hill, San Diego's area median income is 130,000, ours is about 71. And so, everything that Mike just said, like this housing does not match what we need. So let's wrap this up and talk a little bit about what we're on track to do. So by 2029, what Golden Hill is going to be on track to have is going to exceed our community capacity by 2 to 3 times. We're going to have no new transit in place to support these units, which is the thing that made it all possible. We're going to have increased congestion, decreased pedestrian and bicycle safety. We've already had some deaths around our area. I have a bike shop, and particularly for those that are by the canyon, there are people that are by the canyon that will have no way out. We have no meaningful increase in housing units that are affordable to those living in our neighborhood. And of those with access to new housing, it does not offer a path to ownership, because all of them, I have not heard of yet a mass unit, complete communities that is not rental. Nothing is a condo, nothing is building ownership and generational wealth. So the result is that our rich our rich mixed income neighborhood, why we moved there is for the diversity and the loveliness and the who we are as neighbors to each other is eroding as development is pushing out the existing residents. And those new opportunities are being designed for high income earners. So kind of sucks. But if you're concerned about these issues,
this is why we're coming to all of you and to also help provide pressure to the city. As we mentioned before, the city does a one-time yearly recap of what's happened because of the rapid rate of construction that you're seeing in your neighborhoods, as we can show in our neighborhood. This needs to be done at a much faster cadence. This is where we're talking about enhanced data quality and timeliness. They need to be doing this at least quarterly. If not having that, the tracking system real time, you issue a permit, it's counted. And when they close a permit, it's counted. So we all need to know what's happening in our neighborhoods, as well as how we're tracking with what's going on in our neighborhood. They need to show how these numbers are evolving and how complete community should still be applied in the neighborhoods. Does it still make sense to have this kind of density based on what we're seeing, rather than let's just call it 2029 and let's see what happens? So that's what we're asking for. And informed policy data. I mean, basically what we're coming here to show you and what we can provide all of you is how we did what we did, the importance of being able to track all the new development happening in your community, understanding how your community is going to change with this kind of development, rapid development, and what we all can do about it as we all combine as a community of concerns to San Diego, because we're all facing this. All of us here are doing this. So we're trying to show this is what's happening to us. We rang the bell. Some of you might be seeing this, maybe you haven't seen this before. We can provide all of you the tools of how we did what we did, the importance of it, and then we should all combine together to get to legislation at the mayor's office and city council. We need faster data and we need a more evolving system to direct growth in San Diego, in all the communities, in all the neighborhoods. Any questions? We know we're tired.
really important, like that community advocacy questions is like density that matches community capacity. Like that's what we're talking a lot about, there's infrastructure, making sure that that matches, right? And so like our lawsuit is getting at that. But there is nothing really that I've seen that we are doing that is equity focused, and equity is a central part of all of this work. And it's really like, because it doesn't align, the housing that's coming in doesn't align with the majority of the residents' needs. It is a fair housing issue, the fair housing concern and fair housing law seems like there is an appropriate pathway to consider what's happening.
So I would say that data quality and timeliness doesn't even matter because they're not gonna stop until 29. Right, so you can get the data and just be pissed off every week, but you need to get them to actually stop issuing the permit.
That's part of the second thing, is
Yeah, so the second
using
part,
evidence to guide the growth.
that's where I would focus most of my energy, is that density that matches community density. Because they can give you the data and tell you, hey, we're still not gonna stop, we see that you hit your level.
The data is important to show what's happening so far in the community, and then to show what can the community actually truly absorb based on everything that we're seeing with infrastructure support and everything else. Yeah.
Do you have a website that has all this information on it, or?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yep, preservegreatergoldenhill.com.
And Vicki, we also have this on the CPC website.
Oh,
Anything that we do here, I load it to our documents.
Okay.
I'm not a member of CPC, but I've done a lot of research on the replacement units for complete communities. And I just want to make you all aware, we looked over the first 2 years of the program, and there was not one replacement unit built that was incremental to the affordable housing requirements for complete communities. And what I mean by that is that when naturally occurring affordable housing is torn down for these projects, do not have to build any incremental affordable units unless they exceed what the requirements are for the complete communities project that's being built. Otherwise, they're just, the replacement units are credited against what's already required of complete communities. And in the first 16 projects over the first 2 years of the program, that was not one single replacement unit. So no replacement units were built. They only built what complete communities already required. Nothing was replaced at all. It's all smoke and mirrors.
But you'll still keep hearing, we're in a housing crisis.
Yeah.
That's how they still justify it.
So one of your early comments was regarding how much data we see and don't see, and a lot of that is driven, I think, by the existence of ministerial rights, where we all lose a lot of opportunities where, 5 years ago, we used to see much more.
Yep.
But the ministerial rights implies that somebody is seeing that data and acting on that. So I think your statistics is great. I'm gonna look at your website to research a bit more. But I think we need to have parity between what the ministerial rights is looking at a database and what you're examining the database, figure out the differences and make the corrections.
Yeah. We all could be doing that. Yeah. Anybody else?
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you, for your consideration, your attention, your great questions. You can see the importance of what we were doing. We hope the best, and we want to give all of you the tools as well in doing this. So thank you all.
Okay, we will move forward now to the city. Tell us about development impact fees. A couple planning groups requested this to get some explanation on some of this because a lot of us, it was different in the past. And I don't know when it changed. It was a little bit before my time. 4 years ago?
2021.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, perfect. So this is Sameera, right?
Yeah.
Perfect, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I apologize for being late, having to move your agenda around.
Excuse me, I think you're gonna need to project your voice.
Will do.
Thank you.
So this evening's discussion agenda is what are development impact fees? How have development impact fees evolved in San Diego? What does a transition to citywide development impact look like? How are infrastructure projects prioritized in the city? And how are environmental justice considerations addressed as part of the capital improvement program prioritization process? We want to, as part of this presentation, explain how development impact fee funding works and how infrastructure priorities are determined. What are development impact fees? Development impact fees are one-time fees charged to all development to fund infrastructure needed to support population and employment growth. Fees must demonstrate a reasonable nexus. Why are we collecting the fees? What infrastructure is required? That nexus needs to exist. It is authorized by the Mitigation Fee Act, and fees collected can fund infrastructure attributed to new growth, but cannot fix existing deficiencies. Here's a quick time-lapse on how the fees have evolved. So in 1980s, Best Fees Benefit Assessment Ordinance was adopted, which identified areas that were largely undeveloped and where growth was occurring. FBAs assumed that all infrastructure costs were driven by new growth. So it had to cover for every single infrastructure that was needed in that area. And in 1987, Mitigation Fee Act was passed, under which community-specific development impact fees were implemented and adopted in the city of San Diego. This applied mainly to urbanized communities / developed communities. These fees are based on proportionate share of infrastructure that is attributable to new growth. And this also resulted in a fragmented fee system because each community had its own fees, and the fees varied significantly from one community to another. Therefore, even if certain communities saw a lot of development, if their fees were lower, they collected much less fees and were not able to provide for the infrastructure that was needed because the funds collected was much lower. And then in 2016, since the city was largely built out, having facilities benefit assessment districts was no longer relevant, and that was repealed, and every single community was now subject to community specific development impact fees. And in 2021 and 2022, as part of two separate packages, one was Parks for All of Us, adopted the citywide parks diff, which replaced the parks component of community specific development impact fees. And in 2022, as part of Build Better SD, the remaining asset type, community diff for remaining asset types was replaced by citywide fees. So in August 2022, at that time, as part of both the packages, we had in place citywide parks development impact fees and citywide fees for fire, library, and mobility. So we transitioned, these four fees replaced all the community specific fees. So the main challenges with community-based development impact fees were that it was 44 separate community development impact fee accounts. They were inconsistent, inequitable, as I mentioned. There were communities where the fee was very low, and even if that community saw a lot of development, it wasn't really collecting enough funds to provide infrastructure that was meaningful. And the rates ranged a lot. It ranged from $1,000 to $100,000 across communities. It was less flexible, and it was hard to actually expend those funds to build infrastructure that was needed in the community. Each community had its own public festivals financing plan, which had to be updated separately to adjust fees. It listed projects, but it did not mean that those projects were actually built. Development impact fee rates were based on outdated infrastructure needs and costs, which better served greenfield development and was no longer happening. And when these citywide fees were adopted, at that time, there was $243 million in different community diff accounts, 44 different accounts, like different amounts, which totaled $243 million, and this remained unallocated at that time.
When was that?
2021 and 2022. So with the transition to citywide development impact fees, 44 community development impact fee accounts were consolidated into 4 citywide development impact fee accounts for libraries, parks, mobilities, and fire, which has resulted in easier and more efficiency in managing those accounts. The 44 public festivals financing plans identifying infrastructure needed for the fee rates also remained, also have now been replaced by 4 citywide nexus studies. Again, it is much more efficient to update these 4 nexus studies from time to time. They were locked of the funds, as I mentioned, there was $243 million in different accounts, and they were all locked in those accounts. So even though there was money, if there was a certain need in a different community which did not have a fund balance, there was no way to use these funds in that community, because the money is collected in a community has to be expended in that community under the community specific development impact fee system. So less flexibility, and then the rates were very different. Again, as I explained, like if the rate is much lower in a certain community, the amount of fees and the amount of revenue collected is much lower, which doesn't really help with building the desired infrastructure. And community identified infrastructure needs only through public festivals financing plans, and those plans had to be updated as part of community plan updates. And we have limited resources, and we're not able to keep up all the 44 plans current at all times, which leaded to infrastructure that was identified in the public festivals financing plans that were outdated, and sometimes something that the community did not desire. Next slide. So with the transition, one important thing to note is any funds that are collected in the community specific diff account still are required to be spent in that community and for the purpose for which it was collected. The public festivals financing plans will remain in place until all of the community development impact fees are fully expended. Community-based development impact fee funds can be supplemented by citywide development impact fee funds, which we have seen, and we have been able to supplement citywide fees in certain communities, which has a lower fund balance, and further those projects in a more efficient manner. Community-based development impact fees will continue to be collected for certain projects, which is go to the next slide and talk about that a little more. And go back one slide, please. And then complete transition from community-specific fees to citywide fees is going to take some time because of certain state laws and certain pipeline clauses, which we'll discuss in the following slides. Again, at the time when citywide development impact fees was adopted, approximately 243 million was in the community development impact fee funds. The unallocated community development impact fee fund balance is now being reduced to $172 million. So we have been able to reduce that fund balance by 30% in the last 4 years. And remaining balances will be continued to be programmed as part of the capital improvement program budget process. Citywide fees has allowed for funding to be used more strategically across the communities and to provide for infrastructure where it is needed the most.
Could you clarify how you made the decisions about projects? I mean, I understand the concept is like putting it and then you have a plan, but like who developed the plan of who gives priority to the projects?
We do have some slides and I'm happy to answer the questions towards the end. We do talk about how we prioritize projects and what the budget process is like. Citywide development impact fees, since the time citywide fees have been adopted, which citywide parks tip was adopted in August of 2021. All the other citywide fees were adopted in August of 2022. Since then, we have collected around $70 million in citywide fees, and all but $15 million have been allocated to various projects across the city. And also this $15 million is also going to be allocated to various projects as part of the budget process, the mid-year budget process and end of the year budget process. So it is all being allocated. We have very little fund balances since we have transitioned to the citywide fees as far as citywide fees is concerned. And then development impact fee rates are based on current infrastructure needs and are updated regularly. We are currently working on the next study update as we speak, and we plan to take the updates to committee and city council in May and July so that we're able to keep the fees current. Who pays development impact fees and when? All development is subject to development impact fees. The residential development, it is based on the number of units, unit mixes, and square footage. Non-residential development, the fees is based on square footage and land use. Fees are imposed at building permit issuance, but applicants and developers have up until final inspection to pay the fees. And again, projects that meet certain pipeline clauses continue to pay into the community development impact fees. Therefore, we are still collecting community fees and will continue to expand it in accordance with the adopted public festivals financing plan and the purpose for which it was collected. So SB 330, this was introduced in 2020, and this requires that any fee methodology that has been in place when an application was first received has to be honored when the applicant comes back to pay the fees. So if an application was submitted in 2020, but the applicant is actually getting his permits in 24 and building the units in 2026 and paying the fees in 2026, we still have to honor the fee methodology that existed in 2020. So at that time, if it was community diff, and if now community diff is lower than the citywide fees, then the applicant is going to pay the community fees. So we're not required to change the fee systems on them. However, if the development was in a community where the community diff is higher than the citywide fees, then the applicant pays into the citywide fees. And that is all to comply with State Bill 350.
For that to be true, doesn't the application have to have been deemed complete as of that date?
It is based on that. It is based on a complete application. It is based on the application fee date when we have collected all of the material and we have reviewed it and we have signed off on it. SB 330 lists 17 different items and the applicant is required to meet all
So it's deemed complete, it's not just vague?
No, okay, yeah. Capital improvement programs and development impact fees. City's capital improvement programs adopted budget for fiscal year 2026 is $843.7 million, out of which $8.8 million is in development impact fee funds are part of the budget process of overall budget. And for this particular fiscal year, development impact fee funds represent 1% of the overall capital improvement program budget. The fees are, so development impact fees are legally restricted and may only be used for infrastructure projects attributable to new growth, as identified in the Nexus studies or public trustees financing plans. So basically, development impact fees is a relatively small but important legally restricted funding source that feeds into the overall capital improvement program budget. Starting 2023, city planning has been managing the community input process to comply with Council Policy 000-32, which establishes a process to gather community input to inform the budget process. So city planning has a survey that is open all year round to gather community input. And we also work with planning groups and provide an Excel form to gather planning group input for infrastructure priorities. All of this input that we receive is compiled and shared with asset owning departments in the month of August and early September, end of August, early September, which then informs the budget process. So they get all the community input and they look at various other factors, which we will discuss in the upcoming slides, which is then compiled and then shared with engineering and capital projects. We do have Caryn McGriff from engineering and capital projects here with us today to answer any questions. And once the 5-year outlook has been published, then city planning summarizes all the input that was received by community members and provides asset owning department responses and also provides information whether or not a project was included in the 5-year outlook. If not, the reasons for that. So we do publish that report as well once the 5-year outlook has been published. How projects funded. Council Policy 800-14 establishes criteria used to prioritize capital infrastructure projects. Projects score higher when they address environmental risks or health and safety, incorporate community inputs and priorities, benefit underserved communities, serve areas with population growth, have an identified funding source, can be delivered quickly, and leverage other funding sources such as grants and other funds. Council Policy 800-14 prioritize projects that improve conditions in underserved communities. The city's environmental justice element ensures planning decisions address communities that are disproportionately impacted by environmental and socio-economic factors. The Climate Equity Index identifies communities of concern based on access to opportunity and environmental burden. The Parks Master Plan prioritizes investment in park deficient communities, and citywide parks development impact fee funding is directed towards high need and park deficient areas. I can provide a little background about citywide park diff that the resolution that adopted citywide park diff requires that 85% of the funds be expended and allocated to projects in park deficient communities, out of which at least 50% needs to go towards communities of concern. And then there are other buckets which requires that 10% be allocated towards land acquisition, and anything else can go towards is an unrestricted funding source for parks. So together, these tools align policy, data, and funding to prioritize infrastructure where it is needed the most. So key takeaways: development impact fees help fund infrastructure needed to support growth. Again, it can only help with infrastructure needed or attributed to new growth, but cannot help fix existing deficiencies. Development impact fee revenue represents only a small part of the city's infrastructure funding. Infrastructure priorities are determined through Council Policy 800-14, community input, and capital improvement program process. Environmental equity is one of the several factors considered when scoring projects under Council Policy 800-14. plan. We do have a web page for infrastructure prioritization with the survey that is up and running all year round. Community members can provide input at any time. And we do work with planning groups and share the Excel spreadsheet generally in the month of May and request that the input be provided back to us by August, so we can compile all of that and share it with asset owning departments in September, which then they review and provide their feedback to engineering and capital projects so that they can consider all of the asset managing department input into the 5-year planning process. So there is a web page, survey can be taken at any time, and we have a lot of information about that. And we also publish all our summary reports on that web page. Happy to answer any
I'd like
questions.
to ask a question, please. Why does the PFFP have to stay in place if we're required to submit our priorities each year? And the city is spending legacy diff that is not on our PFFP. You understand the question? So we have a legacy diff fund and we have a PFFP, which I would consider as legacy. It's Navajo. It's, I don't know, I think at least 15 years old. So why does that PFFP have to stay in place if the city is spending from our legacy diff fund against projects that are not on our PFFP?
We cannot spend money on anything that is not in the
The
BFFP.
mayor just took $4 million from our account and spent it on emergency storm drain products, saying it was an emergency project that had to be done, wasn't on our PFFP.
I'm happy to look into that. That those storm drains are probably are in the public facilities financing plan. Otherwise, we're not able to expend them, but I'm happy to look at that specific
The next
project and
question I
provide.
have- Thank you very much. The next question I have, and I'm sorry to rush, but I have to go. The Mitigation Fee Act, I believe, requires that the city put out a report each year that says how much was collected in each community and what projects that money was spent on. Now, I've been trying to get an answer to that since last year.
We publish a
And
report every single year.
no report has ever said what is collected from my community since 2023 and been spent anywhere. And I believe I've emailed with you personally, and I haven't gotten an answer.
I'm happy to go over that again, and I'm happy to send you an email. We publish, we take the annual development impact fee report to City Council every single year. There are 2 reports that are published on our webpage every single year. One is the annual development impact fee report, which goes into, which provides an overview. And then there is a funds report that is also published, which goes into the details of every single fund. It says how much money was collected, how much money was expended, on which projects it was expended, and what is the fund balance for that specific.
I keep asking for that for my community, and all I keep getting is a point to my legacy fund. I'm not asking about the legacy fund. I'm talking about fees collected since 2023.
The city-wide fees?
Yeah, because.
So
mitigation
citywide
says
fees go into one part, and there's no way to say like this money was collected in this community. There are no more
But that's what the law
community-specific
requires.
funds.
The law requires to say how much was collected from each project.
The law requires us to report out what money was collected for which fund based on the next study. So now there are 4 nexus studies. It is not community-specific development impact fees anymore, and it is not, it is not related to
Fees are
public.
at the seller. No, they're tried.
1 second, can you go back a couple of slides and then, George, it talks about how the CIP is stored, and we just look it up and then answer the question. Yeah, great.
Second. I had a question, it's kind of fundamental, but I've been reading the 43-page grand jury report of 24-25. And it says that, quite frankly, the city is in complete non-compliance with the NRA. It says these reports that the gentleman talked about don't exist.
The reports
He said-
exist,
He
sorry.
said, well, that's not what the reports.
Sorry.
Have you read the report?
Yeah, I wanted to complete the question. sorry.
Okay, there's a lot of allegations in here about poor accounting, lack of knowledge. Calling funds, the EIF rebuild, which was a code word by the city to divert funds from the legacy accounts and 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 all that, the lockbox counts to the citywide program. And there's a lot to answer to in here, and there's a lot of recommendations. Do you know if anybody at the city has taken that seriously? Because they make a good argument in it. And they say you can't find these reports, we tried. And I also said it should be very obvious for the regular ratepayer, the regular citizen to find. And they can't, as an example. So I'm concerned because not only in the whole concept of citywide fees, which to me are clearly in violation of the MFA, how it's being managed, how it's not being managed. Is there one person in charge of it at the city?
So when the grand jury publishes a report, we are required to respond back to the grand jury report within 90 days and take the report back to city council, which we did. We provided responses for every single recommendation and every single, I think there are 2 categories of comments that were provided. And I think one of the recommendations in the grand jury report is that we're not in violation that we don't publish the report, but the timing wise, I think it says that the report has to be published within 180 days of the end of the fiscal year, which over a few years, we have not been able to meet that timeline because we are a large jurisdiction with 744 different accounts, and the accounts closed in July, and then we need more time to publish the report. So we have been consistently late on publishing the report. So we have taken the report to committee and council generally in March and between March and June, rather than having the report published by December 31st. So that was why we thought that is why the report said that we're not in confirmation.
Well, that's just one example of non-compliance. It wasn't the reason. So I'm not gonna beat you up on it, but it was shocking. You know, they have about 15 reasons why they're not.
And we provided response to every single of the 15 reasons.
Change how you did business. Is there somebody in charge of the city that's in charge of this? Like a department manager or something?
The city planning department is in charge of development and impact fees. I am the assistant deputy director at city planning. I oversee the development and impact fees, and also with me is Kelly Stample, who oversees my division.
Yes, thank you.
David.
So thank you for the presentation. I saw a version of this at the Park and Rec board. I had some questions then, this gives me the chance to follow up on them. So for those of you who don't know, 800-14 lays out broad scoring metric that the city council handed off to the departments. They then took that broad categories, and engineering and capital projects created a subset of scoring metrics that you then score to, which you presented at the Park and Rec board. Even the engineering and capital projects scoring matrix is rather vague in some key spots. For example, they scored parks, you get more points if you're in a high density area and fewer points if you're in a lower density area. They don't have a cutoff threshold between high and low. Is there any plan to put more specificity into these subsets of scoring?
The answer's behind you.
Right here, David. Hi, I'm Caryn McGriff. I am with the Engineering and Capital Projects. I think it was Sheila Bowes that you saw do the presentation at the Park and Rec board 2-3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. The answer is yes. When we drafted, first off, attempting to do a council policy for infrastructure prioritization across the multitude of asset types that the city has. As a first time ever, we knew we weren't gonna nail it. Like, you can't, we got it that perfect. I should be running the city, not just working for it. So we knew that there were going to be tweaks in here. What we wanted to really hear from council and get locked down into the policy was what were the priorities, like where the scoring matrix, the actual ranking of those categories. And as part of going through the 814 adoption process, they made some significant changes to the original recommendation breakdown of the scoring. They even added in a couple of, there's a lot, you know.
I was involved in the 2014 version.
Perfect. So that is kind of locked in stone. That the questionnaire, the tool that we use, we have given it our best shot as a starting point, and we have now used that for 26 and 27 at this point, our current questionnaire. We know that we're gonna go back and tweak it, and truth be told, there were some questions that came out of that park board that we're actually using to kind of spark conversation internally.
Will this review get any sort of public distribution? Because I know there are members of the public who could add useful
Absolutely.
user input. And like, you may assume you understand what you've written, but it's not always understandable to the public.
That is a really good question. I see the value in that. I can't answer that question. I would have to clear that with folks before I could commit to something like that.
And
I
all,
do see the value.
and are all of these sort of like internal questionnaires published somewhere? Because I just saw the one for Park and Parks, not for libraries, mobility and fire.
I can get you the blank questionnaires. I get that. I have no problem doing that. I think we can throw those up easily on the CIP website that we have. Because I think there's a lot of other 800-14 materials up there. That might be a really good ad for general awareness of the kinds of questions that we're asking. We haven't done that yet, because we have on the transportation side, we've changed the questions a couple of times, looking at new things. I love the idea of putting in like like a number to this is low, a number above that is high. I love those, take the gray area out of these things. So that's really where we've been. You're back to your original 1000%. It's not locked in stone, and it's not designed to be locked in stone.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go down to David.
I have 3 questions, not very sophisticated. When community plan updates are adopted, in the past, there was an IFS impact fee study. That's what BIFs were based on, budgets for those particular and specific projects. What is the current status of the IFS?
So the impact fee studies, which is also the public trustees financing plan, will remain for all the community diffs, because the community development impact
So
fee.
that's for the legacy projects.
Yes, so in order to spend the fund balances, those BFFPs will remain and will be expended in accordance with this.
Second question, you mentioned in the presentation that there are lower fees on some types of development, but it's commonly reported that fees are waived for many. Can you tell us what programs are waived where there are no diffs collected?
I'm not able to speak to that because that's outside of this, but I can tell you that.
So if it's paying your salary, and so you should be concerned about who's not writing that check, is in your checkbook balance. That's sort of personal, that's at home.
So development impact fees, when it is an affordable housing unit, the percentage of development impact fees is lesser, especially with citywide parks diff. The resolution clearly states that for an affordable housing development, it's 25% less. And if it is a senior housing, it's also 25% less. So the resolution talks about like the diff reductions. And then
you mentioned reductions, but many, according to many reports, they are waived. Nothing is left. That's 100% reduction. That doesn't seem to be what you're.
Yeah, so there are certain complete communities projects. If it's less than 500 square feet, there is no diff. And if it's affordable house under the complete communities project, then that is diff.
It'd be nice to see a comprehensive list of where the money isn't coming from as well as
yeah, that's something that we can put together.
That's a significant.
It's also, yeah.
My neighborhood. Yeah, and then my third question is about CIP priorities from community planning groups. I've been the chair for I think 2 or 3 years now, and I don't recall seeing a request to present that. The last time we did do that, they were largely unchanged, but we've never gotten any report, any update. Here's your priorities. From out of effort, I've also done that process with CPC, and they don't say, oh, there's no follow through on that. I'm only aware of one project that came to that, and about half of Golden Hills projects are in Balboa Park, not in our own neighborhood, but because we do depend on the adjacent park. And the one that I am aware of is the golf course drive enhancement project, which we've been waiting 30, 40 years. The design phase is pretty much complete. According to the newspaper, I know they're not always correct, but according to the newspaper, the construction budget went to some address on Ash Street. I was just wondering how we prioritize that. In that case, that seems like a priority. It's been the number one priority from our planning group. It's been, it's all these different policy points, and it's relatively efficient because, you know, the entire, we paid for from the planning group, our debt fees paid for the feasibility study and the design, which is a lot of change with most of, as much of our whole budget. And now we're seeing it not happen, and we're not sure what the timeline is on that. And it's a micro specific question, but it'd be really nice to get an update on the status of a particular project like that. And the city's already spent a lot of money on the design, on the feasibility study and everything, and they're all getting from our gift fees.
All right, back, sorry. I can't believe you have all. I'm going to point you guys to a website. I wish we had thought about throwing it up. Specifically for this website, so it's San Diego.gov/CIP, okay? Easy. This is where our capital improvements dashboard is. This is also where you'll find the 800-14 information. When you're there, there's a tab on that website that will take you to project information. Down the website, there are a couple of dashboards. The dashboards work either so you can look up a project specifically, if you happen to know the name, the number, if you're really in tune, stuff like that. There's a GIS map function if you know the location of the project. There's also another dashboard on there where you can look up everything going on in an area. So you can look at every project going on in Greater Golden Hill and see what that is and kind of.
It's been a while since I've tried that, but when I have tried it, there's been no information, which is why I go back. Because the things you don't see them on the ground and you don't see them on the website, so why bother?
Try.
I like I would hope there could be some proactive communication, not go to the library, look at the dictionary, look for the web. It'd be nice to, as a partner.
Specifics.
We're partners with the city, all of our neighborhoods are partners.
Okay, folks, I'm gonna keep moving on because we do have a couple other items, so I wanna get a chance for anybody else coming around the table here. I'll come back to Sage.
We're asking how you get a project on your survey.
How do I get a project on
Yeah,
my survey?
how do you get a book?
To gather community input?
Yeah.
Or-
So you conduct a survey every year, I'm just wondering how you get a project on.
Oh, how's it decided?
Yeah.
How do you, when everything's
How do you
collected
project?
from,
How we make-
How does it become a project
Yeah.
How
from,
we make it.
how do you make I think I'm really confused with the question, like, how do you make a submitted or,
If you have a potential project in your community,
uh-huh.
how do you get the planning department to address that?
So I think the first thing is to take the survey and provide us the input, community input. And what we do with the input that we receive is to share with all the asset managing departments. For example, we get ideas related to parks, road improvements, stormwater improvements. So depending on what the improvement and what the project idea is, we share it with asset owning departments. And they prepare an infrastructure plan every single year to share with engineering and capital projects, which is Caryn's team. And they develop the 5-year capital improvement program outlook, which then feeds into the budget process where funds are actually allocated to the project. And then that project goes through planning, design, and construction and gets
And how do
implemented.
we get a project?
How do we get it in front of you?
How do we get the project to you?
The first step is to take the survey. For a community member, it is to take the infrastructure priorities survey, which is up and live on our webpage. It is open all year round. And the planning groups can also provide their input through the Excel spreadsheet that we share every year in the month of May to provide us a list of priorities for your community planning.
we usually send out a reminder of that, or CPC sends out a reminder to all the CPGs, and Marlon brings it up and when those come out. So we try to do that, get your planning group, to sit down and vote on your CIP projects and fill out the spreadsheet. And then get that in. So I'm gonna move on to, yes, go ahead.
Okay. The city has an accounting system, yes. That DSD collects diffs on behalf of the city and disseminates them into the accounting system of some, right?
Yeah.
You have a aforementioned geospatial system, right? That has all the projects, right? So how difficult, since one of the initiatives for the city this year is supposed transparency for the department to collect and report, you know, as Navajo was talking about. I have all these projects. I have this accounting system that has the monies in it, or well, the money doesn't go out there, but the figures do. And you can do a geospatial join and figure out what all money is coming in DIF funds and report it to the 50 communities. Why is that so hard?
I don't think
It's not actually, but I know this for a fact, but why can't you do that in a matter of transparency?
That's something we can look into. I don't have an answer to that right now, but the whole purpose of transitioning to citywide funds is to manage 4 accounts and not 44 accounts. And be able to expend the monies in accordance with the nexus studies for 4 different asset types.
We want to know what you're taking out of our communities, right? So that we can have some degree of insight on what is being collected. Not necessarily your 4 pots. Yeah, we're interested in the 4 pots and how they're spent, but we're also, full accountability.
Yeah.
The city has no problem figuring out how much I owe them, but we do understand the city has a problem accounting for how it's spent. We'd like to know how much you're taking from us, so we can tell that to her.
We can look into that and report back.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to Sage.
Hi, so I just had a question about, if you are in communities of concern, and affordable housing, fees get waived. Lots of affordable housing goes into communities of concern.
Not all affordable housing gets waived, only if it's part of complete communities. There are certain programs. If it is part of complete communities, then affordable housing is exempt from development impact fees. But if it is part of a different program, or if it is just affordable housing that is being built, then it is not exempt from development impact fees.
Okay, but there's a lawsuit that happened last year and was settled with the city called the Baker lawsuit that it stated, and the city settled, that said that the city was concentrating, basically concentrating poverty. So my question is, if the city is concentrating poverty in particular communities, and those communities are not receiving DIF funds to, increase quality of life, have parks, help with infrastructure, then is that, that's why I'm assuming the city has changed to this other system, supposedly, right? But when will that happen? Because isn't 2021 to 2025, like, where you're working through all this stuff, and then it's supposed to start where you take those monies and you put it back into communities of concern after? I'm
Right, yeah, no, that's a great question, and I'm happy to go over that in detail. So, as you mentioned, right, like citywide development impact fees, no matter where the development is occurring, it all goes into one pot. And citywide parks diff, the way it was adopted, this resolution requires that 85% at least, and it can be more, but at least 85% of the funds collected needs to go to park efficient communities, and at least 50% needs to be allocated to projects in communities of concern. And we are complying with that requirement. We do have a financial summary that is published for every single community and every single citywide fees. So that information is available. I'm happy to email the link to you as well and share which projects have received citywide parks diff funding. So it is in progress, and as I mentioned, we have collected around $70 million in citywide development impact fees. And I don't know the exact percentage, but I think majority, like I think 70 to 80% of that is citywide parks there. So whatever money is being collected, at least 85% is being allocated to park efficient communities. And at least 50% of that 85% is allocated to communities of concern. We have a full list and it's all published on our webpage. I'm happy to provide links to that.
But none of that is being funded until, I mean, nothing's happening with that money yet, right? This is gonna happen next year or this
No,
year?
it's already been allocated. A lot of the projects are already in design phase. They're probably not in construction phase, but they're all being planned, designed, and again, as Caryn mentioned, there is a CIP trackers and like we can get detailed project statuses for each of the projects listed in the financial summary.
Thank you. And I would like.
Okay, I'm gonna come around the table. Bob, did you?
I applaud the transparency, all the discussion in that regard. I think all we're trying to do is, figure out if the scales are evenly applied and if they're being chipped on our and how we need to make our voice heard, but thank you.
Kathleen?
I just wanted to compliment Mr. McGriff on the CIP map. I try to help my community follow capital projects. The map is helpful. I have to say, the city is so big and the website is so complicated and the links change continually. So the only thing I'd like to say is those projects don't get updated as often. The dates get changed monthly, but the projects themselves, I sometimes have to contact my council members rep to ask them to prod someone on a capital project to update the website. I understand it's hard for staff to get back to individual people in a community, but if you're gonna tout that website, it's really important that you give time to be sure you keep those CIP projects updated. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I use legacy diff money to build a monument sign to say, welcome to Grantville?
If it is identified in the public facilities financing plan, then yes.
Can I put that in the Excel spreadsheet and have it built?
You can provide us the input. It can be incorporated with various other funding sources that city has, but if it is any expenses that need to come out of the community specific development impact fees has to be in full compliance with the public facilities financing plan and has to be expended on the purpose for which the fees were collected.
I think you see where I'm going with this. The public facilities financing plan doesn't serve a purpose if we have an annual update to the CIP list.
That is why we are slowly transitioning into citywide development impact fees. And we have now 4 nexus studies to govern the 4 different fees, and we have more we have the resources needed to update those 4 nexus studies as opposed to updating 44 public facilities financing plan.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, just gonna go to Dana and then we're gonna call it because we have one thing to do.
Since 2020, the city's added the ADU bonus program, complete community, Senate Bill 9. For all of those programs, there are waived diff fees. There have been. For ADUs, they waived everything for a long time until last year. Complete communities, the portable units, those less than 500 square feet, then those with 2 or 3 bedrooms, those were waived. Senate Bill 9, the first 2 units and so on. My question is, since 2020, how much each year has the city waived in diff fees? We're in a budget crisis and the city keeps giving away diff fees, which go strictly to the developer. There has been no decrease in the cost of housing. I would like the city to please get back to us on how much has been waived each year in diff fees for these projects.
And also break it down by community too, if you wouldn't mind.
All right. Thank you, Sameera. Thank you, city staff, for coming and putting this together. I will I'll ask Marlon to give us the PowerPoint and I'll put it up on ours before you all run off. We still have a couple more items on the agenda. And
Madam Chair, I did find all the diff reports on the website.
you did. Okay, great. If you send me an email for that thing, so I might send out the grand jury. Right, how about that?
Well.
Yeah. Oh, so you've got that. Okay. All right. I think one of the most important things we need to do is, I know that our community, I'll just share what we did up in Scripps Ranch, because we had a number of these legacy accounts. And we had them spotted all over, and when we joined our planning groups for Miramar Ranch North and Scripps Ranch and Rancho Encantada, we started talking about, this money that's just hanging out there and has been for a long time and can't touch it, can't do this. So we got together with our city council reps, and we had them dig through and do literally a spreadsheet of all the funds, where they are at, where they're stuck. So we actually made our city council community reps dig and do all that research for us, and we sat down with them and we went over every single fund and what it was and where the funds went to when they were actually taken out. Most of it was taken out, millions was taken out. So we were able to get a very good accounting, at least to answer some of these questions that I think so many of us have. But it did take the effort of us pushing city council, our city council reps to come in together in the 3 different areas, and it, we got answers, which is what I'm trying to say. So I just encourage you to work with your city council, community reps, and push them to come together and give you that information. But doesn't fix everything, but.
How long ago was that?
6 months, maybe 8 months ago. Yeah, that we did that. So it answered a lot of questions, which was great for us. So we found out we had really nothing left. We're like, oh, okay.
That's what it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn this over to Marlon for the staff report, and then I have a couple things to talk about. Felicity and I have been busy this past week, so we want to share with you a little bit of what we've been up to. So Marlon, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I just got one update for everyone. Some of you may have already seen this in the constant contact that I had emailed not too long ago regarding SB 79, and this group provided a recommendation to the state legislators regarding your position on SB 79. It has now been signed, so the city planning department has launched a new website regarding the local implementation of Senate Bill 79 or SB 79. A bill signed by the governor last year that allows for more home development around certain transit stops. The city's website has an overview of the bill where it likely applies in San Diego, as well as information regarding the department's proposed initiative to implement SB 79. SB 79 is scheduled to take effect on July 1st of this year and will require the city to permit more homes near transit in places where the bill applies. However, the legislation also provides the city with multiple options for implementation, including the ability to implement SB 79 in phases. The city's website explains the bill's requirements, provides information on the department's plan to implement SB 79 in phases, includes maps about where the bill may apply, and gives residents an opportunity to sign up for updates and keep informed regarding this new initiative. And real quick, here is the website. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it already. Just a quick overview of what SB 79 is, where it applies. So you can click on this map. It shows some other details in terms of where it applies. Pretty much, it's focused around all our trolley station stops. Now, Sandag is going to be issuing a map that's supposed to be the map that determines the stop sign, the stops. And so if anything changes, we would update our map to reflect that. Here it talks about kind of what that effect would be for our areas within a quarter mile and a half mile of the transit stop. So what we're looking at here is anywhere from 80 to 140 dwelling units per acre or homes per acre, and up to from 55 and up to 85 feet in terms of building height around those TODs. So as I mentioned, it would take effect on July 1st of this year. However, as part of the city's implementation, we do have the ability to phase some of those areas, so they won't be in effect right away. And some of these areas will be where we will be phasing implementation are areas that, for one, we're going to be exempting areas that have less than 1 mile walking path distance to transit. So that's not by where the crow flies, it's actual measurement of someone being able to walk a mile to the transit station. So if they're not able to do that because there are no public sidewalks or there are barriers like canyons and freeways, then that wouldn't count. So we have to make sure there's that path. And then So the other areas that we are going to be phasing would be, low resource areas for the California Tax Allocation Committee maps, the low resource, areas, as well as areas that are subject to sea level rise, very high fire hazard severity zones, as well as sites with designated historic sites on them. And so what we will be doing first is proposing an ordinance to allow us to do that, because SB 79 requires us to do an ordinance in order to phase these areas and not let them go into effect right away. So it gives that opportunity to help manage how we plan those areas. And then once that goes through, then we will be pursuing a alternative TOD plan to talk about how we plan those phased areas. So that'll happen most likely after the fiscal year, so sometime in the summer. And that'll be a public process. So be on the lookout for the program for that. And if you want to be and stay involved, we've got some other information on here. We do have a sign up here, so we could build that email contact list with everybody that's interested.
So the city can't opt out of SB 79.
No.
So how does the Baker lawsuit in concentrating poverty for the city of San Diego, considering that in my community, there's 3 trolley stops, and our community is the one who sued the city and settled. How is that gonna be phased? How would you phase that concept? I mean, I know we do, but how is that gonna be looked at, or who's gonna rectify that with that lawsuit that has been settled?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the lawsuits. I can't really comment on that. I know that as part of our TOD alternative plan, we will be looking at all the TODs that affect certain communities, working with the communities on how we manage the growth and the implementation of the densities that they allow here, as well as the heights. There are certain thresholds for certain capacities that are allowed in those TODs, and it's a matter of meeting certain minimums, if that's possible. So that has yet to be seen.
Okay, just 2 more questions and then.
Well, no, I wanted to respond. I read the website today and I was looking specifically for the college area. But the website indicates that the city was going to phase implementation of SB 79 in communities of concern until after it completes update of the housing element, which is scheduled for 2031.
Yeah, you just passed it.
Yeah,
It's a little right there.
Yeah.
And then there was also going to be a delay based on communities that had high fire risk severity zones.
Which is also our community, but yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Also.
Wow, good job. I'll go read it.
Bob, do you have a question?
The US Senate passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act a week ago, and they're waiting for that House to take some action. And a lot is going to impact financing, types of housing and build, method of construction. Has any of that been considered, or are those 2 completely unrelated questions? And the state will eventually learn, or will learn that the state is doing better?
Yeah, I think we're keeping that a little less complicated, separating those 2. But, our effort to implement SB 79 will occur later, and, things like that may come into play. So, stay tuned.
There's some exciting things in there, so it's kind of interesting to see that.
Well, it's nice to see that someone has seen some exciting things in state legislation. Okay.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marlon.
Okay, and then we want to see.
Yeah, actually, Paul, can you bring that up on the screen? Bring up the CPC website, sdcpc.org. Yeah, .org. And it's just CPC, no. Yeah, that one. There you go. Okay, so I don't know if y'all know we have this out there. Paul created it. Okay, so I just want to make sure I am updating this as often as I possibly can. And yes, Marlon, if you go down where it says read docs, that's where you're going to find a lot of stuff. Any of the things that are the agendas are out here, bylaws are out here. land code presentations. If you click into, any of these, you're gonna then find even more subfolders in there that will have city presentations, member rep, CPC members, other public meetings. So if you're looking for any of these that we've had here, I have likely loaded them out here already once I receive them. And also agendas, minutes. So I'm trying to keep everything we do out there, including even getting letters back from when we write a letter. Our letters are out there and the responses are out there, and that's all under the letters where it says down there. So, if you can, try to get used to going into this site, because you're gonna get a lot of information right here that we're trying to centralize on there. And there's a ton of stuff. So, if you go back to the website and then if you go up to the top, our current events, the other thing I'm trying to keep up at the very top on the right there. If you go to current events, I'm also trying to keep these things out here too. So our CPC happenings. So, and if you scroll down a little bit, Marlon. So this is what I want. This is what Felicity and myself and a few others have been up to this last week. We attended both the Rules Committee for City Council, and we attended the the Planning Commission for two separate reasons, but the focus of these have a lot to do with each other, and it has to do with our voice, CPG's voices being heard, CP's, trying to get ourselves heard and put at a level that's equal with applicants or equal with, just instead of us having to, as you all know, a seat at the table, we're trying to get away from having to seat time. So I showed up, we had 8 people, and I was like, oh, I've got this. I had a 9-minute, 30-second presentation. And I'm like, I've got it. We're gonna get 2 minutes each, maybe a minute and a half, So I've got plenty of time to do the presentation. Nope, what happened? We got 1 minute each. So my 9-minute, 38-second presentation, all of a sudden I had to do it in 8 minutes. And so you can watch it. You can see I'm a little frustrated to begin with, because I was shocked, not shocked, that we were only given 1 minute at Rules Committee meeting, but this seems to be the trend right now. The shorter, and you all know, if anybody's talked in a city council meeting, a Rules Committee or Planning Commission, 1 minute is nothing. You can't get it. So we're still pushing seat at the table. I was able to, if you go, the videos are embedded right there, and seat at the table's on the right. And I put where I start speaking. If you go through the rest of it, you will hear Councilmember Lee speak to it. You'll hear Campillo speak to it, and you'll hear Joe LaCava speak to it, which is better than the first time around. The first time around, Council President LaCava just, had invited us, which was great, but there was nothing, again, so we're warming them up and we're gonna refine our presentation each time. But I'm gonna ask, it will go before City Council. This is SB 707, which has to do with virtual, and we're tying it together with, it's about having robust public, participation in meetings. That's like the whole reason for SB 707 applying, creating rules for virtual to be equal with people that are there in person. So we're also coming and saying, we're a body that this city regulates. We have, everything we're done is by a council policy, right? 600-24, everybody's has to apply to that. The rest of the other public groups don't. They have their own, they don't have rules like we do. We have the Brown Act, we're elected members from our communities. So we're making all of these points and trying to get City Council to at least give us a seat at the table. So if your CPG has an issue, instead of having you having to get, 10 people to get a 15-minute slide presentation, and how are you going to get those people? I know how difficult it is. So, and yet we're supposed to be recognized by the city. So give us the recognition that I think we do deserve. So we're still working at that. We're going to ask more people to come to the City Council meeting. I'd like to get at least 10 people, because I'll probably get a minute. And, the presentation will probably be 10 minutes if I can. So I'm going to ask for some solid people to come talk about that. But slowly, it's being positive. I'm following up with emails to all the council members, thanking them for talking about it and saying, we'll sit down with you, just call us up, we're ready. But we'll see. that was seat at the table. Then we went to the planning commission, and this in particular, which is the one on the left, it's at the top, right, right, that one, buddy, if you go down a little bit, right there, just there, nope, down, yeah, under seat right there, my 19 planning.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, there you go. So that's also on here, and basically the mid-cities planning, communities update. They're doing a plan update right now, which normally like college area had just college area, right? Their CPG was the only one, but city planning worked through college area, the planning group and all of that. Mid-cities is 4 planning groups. And the city decided, city planning decided instead of using the planning groups, they created a work group. And this work group, ended up having, 1 representative from each planning group, that's it. And the work group was 16 folks, the rest of them were applied for it, were sought after to get their information, so now you've got 16 people on it, and the only reps are 1 person per planning group that's on this work group that's developing this entire update. So when I heard about that, and this first review that went to the planning commission, I was like, wait, that's not how it works. I mean, our part of what we're told to do is plan updates, right? I mean, that's what they've always been. And all of a sudden we're being pulled out of it and only having 1 person from each group being represented. So I went and spoke to that as well as a process issue. I didn't speak to the mid-cities plan because it's the mid-cities plan and it's those 4 plan groups, but I went and spoke to the process issue on it. I think this is we need to stay on top of this. We need to assert our elected by constituents of the council, you know, and we need, you know, what's the point of us? That's the point here, right? What is our point? What have we been called to do? Why are we sitting here if our voice continues to be just taken out and put on the back burner? So I'm gonna go to David real quick.
I just first want to start by, when this happened to us 2 years ago, I didn't think anyone would care about the process screwing us over. And when Victoria heard about it and she got upset and decided to come down, that really moved me. That she took the extra time and effort as the chair of the CPC to fight for this violation of basic dignity for one particular section of the city, as no other parts of the city have ever been treated like this before, where the planning group has been almost completely squeezed out of the planning update process. So thank you very much, Victoria.
Yeah. I really think that we're a vital group and we need to stay here. We are the ones that bring transparency to our communities. And we are regulated by the city, so we're supposed to be in partnership with them. And that's what I think we need to get back to, building these bridges back to the city and establishing that we are the voice of your constituents. And so I'm gonna keep pushing at that, but in particular, I wanted to let you know, if you do decide to take a look at the videos, if you look at Ken Marlborough, it was already there, yeah. See, the timestamp 22900, so you can listen to my spiel at 116. David does a great job of representing his remarks. And then if you look at Ken, the other planning commissioners blew us off. And it was, I'm just giving the facts. They said, you've got, you know, extensive, diverse, they said, you have diverse representation. So they didn't really hear what I said, but Mr. Marble did. And he really spoke to David in particular. And he stood up and said, you know, there are folks out here in the community volunteer their time for 8 years sometimes. And he called it for what it was. He said it's very disrespectful. So that's what happens. If we get out, it might be 1 person at a time, but at least let's get out there. Let's make sure that we get our voices heard. And maybe at some point there'll be a little crack and some light comes through and then you go, all right, we're gonna swing you back into this. But be good, be kind, have proper decorum along the way, because that helps tremendously.
I would like to make a comment. On the 12 of the 16, people had to respond to a form if they wanted to be part of those 12 open positions. 20% of the respondents were age 65 and over. Guess how many of the 12 are 65 and over? 0. That's discrimination. That's absolute bias.
So these are the types of things that we need to bring in. That's why planning groups are the way the city should go, because they'll get themselves trapped in a situation like that, where if you're on a planning group and you've got elected representatives that are in that planning group, they went out, we've had some big changeovers in planning groups, right? Some, other voices that are coming in, great. We need those voices. That's what the city wanted us to do, be more diverse. We've been working at it. They did a whole reformation on us, and we're doing it. It's not gonna change overnight, but we're working at getting all the voices in there. So it keeps them safe if they actually use the groups that they've set up and created in a whole system for.
Without comment, I have another question on that partnership with the city and planning groups. When they did the so-called reforms, my understanding was the expectation was that we would be staffed by our city planner on a quarterly basis. And that's what, 3 months? I think. Well, I just was wondering what the expectation actually was and what other groups' experience was.
I think they spoke to that though a little while ago, saying how it was gonna be difficult with.
Well, that's city policy though, city policy, that's not
Yeah.
difficult, if we have a meeting, when we don't put a notice, we don't have a meeting. Because we have to follow the law. We have to follow the policy 600-24.
Yeah.
But so everybody's experiencing the same thing apparently.
Well, we got one in like 5 years.
Yeah, we've had one in.
3 years, none.
There's no.
I got an email 3 months ago.
Right, wow. Hey.
Can I make a suggestion?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you can still reach out to your assigned committee planner.
You can reach out, and they might or might not respond. My question was, what was the expectation and what was the experience? And again, without comment, but I just wanted to, it wasn't, reach out. But I wanted to know what was happening on the ground, how the city policy adopted unanimously by the council was being implemented.
So, no, that's okay. So, you can tell, Madam Chair, she's working very, very hard to bring these issues forward. And she's done an excellent job, and she will continue to push these issues forward. My suggestion was, I don't know how much traction we'll get with the current city council. There will be, a meeting, I think, next month for exactly. So as we are looking at changing seats, I think there's 4 up. My suggestion is that when you go to your candidate forums, bring up seat at the table, get commitments from the candidates on the record, supporting seat at the table, so that when we have the new constitution of city council members, they won't be shocked when we're standing there once again saying we want a seat at the table, and they will know why. Okay,
Let's see, you want a motion?
What?
a motion to adjourn?
No,
Not yet. I also want to say one more thing about Victoria, our intrepid chair. She has been distinguished and recognized by Senator Brian Jones as a leading woman. I just want to read the distinction. In special recognition of your unyielding dedication to the betterment of our community through your leadership as chair of the City of San Diego's Community Planners Committee, fostering city engagement, amplifying neighborhood voices, and connecting community leaders with City Hall, your integrity, compassion, and commitment to transparent, inclusive public service have made a lasting impact on our city and its residents. Thank you, Matt.
I appreciate that. I do it because I love our city. I love our community. And I think that's why we all do it, right? So, and I thank you all for your commitment. And I hope we can get more and more planning groups here. It'd be great if we doubled our size, on these things. So anyway, everybody just keep working and be on the lookout for an email from me saying, will you please come down to City Hall and sit and give me your time? So with that, if there's no other comments by members, we'll adjourn for the evening.
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet.
What?
I make a motion, whereas the method of developing a new community plan for the 4 mid-city planning group areas was changed to place CPGs in a secondary role within a separately city-appointed body. And prior community update advisory committees were structured under and through the recognized CPG. I move that an ad hoc committee be formed to restore the role of the CPG in the development of the new mid-city community plan.
You don't need a motion for that.
Right, I know, we both went, oh, okay, he said ad hoc.
Ad hoc.
Okay, so, okay,
So you need to form that committee at that circle.
That's your formal request.
okay. Gonna be on it?
Yes.
Okay,
I expect all 4 chairs put forward their representatives to be in it, and for Normal Heights, our work group representative Emily will be on it. And I know David will. Anyway, we have.
at least 4,
Right, we have the list of.
okay. And if you're, all right, if you're interested in that, let me know. So I will go ahead and put that together. We'll do. Perfect, so please reach out, otherwise we're adjourned for the evening, thank you.